Well, good morning and welcome to everybody who's come. This is a day of great nostalgia for both my sister Mary and I. Back in 1974, I was just 13 and she was 9.5, but we were here. The idea of having a monorail at Beaulieu came to our father when he visited the 1967 Expo in Montreal. And there was an elevated mini rail system which was taking people around the fair and actually went through some of the pavilions. And when, just a few years later, he commissioned the architect Leonard Manasseh to design the Beaulieu visitor complex of today, and particularly the Motor Museum, he said, I want one of those monorail systems that goes through the roof of the museum. And of course, that is what he got. The National Motor Museum itself was opened in 1972, and the monorail followed just 2 years later in 1974. And this coincided with the completion of these, at the time, very advanced pieces of construction, these geodesic domes. This one over here housed the world's greatest model railway, and the one over here, the Transparama Multimedia Show. And this really represented the completion of my father's dream and Leonard Manasseh's plan for the Beaulieu Visitor Complex. The monorail system itself was built for us by Butlins, who already had a monorail system at their holiday camps at Skegness and Minehead. But their trains looked rather like 1950s spaceships, which were fun, but not quite right for Beaulieu. And so the trains for Beaulieu were styled rather more in a functional 1970s style, which I still think was somewhat influenced by British Rail's prototype high-speed train. Have a look at it and see what you think. Then, as now, there were two trains, one of which lives in a siding at quieter times. And we estimate that over the last 50 years, the trains have clocked up an incredible 500,000 miles and carried 13.5 million people. Now, this has only been possible because of the exacting maintenance of the track and the trains over many decades by our museum workshop engineers. Some parts on the trains have been replaced many times over, and other components have been redesigned, so that our trains are technically superior now to those that we started with in 1974. And I'm pleased to say that amongst those of you in the crowd are a few who were here in 1974. First, Ken Robinson, Managing Director of the Beaulieu attraction, who oversaw the commissioning of the system. Second, David Wilrich, who was very much my age. It was his father who really supervised the building of the track and trains, representing the engineering expertise for the Beaulieu end and dealing with Butlins and making sure that the Beaulieu standards and indeed his engineering standards were maintained. We also have to thank John Wilrich for later initiating the building of Iver, the diesel engine that lives usually in the siding but is there to carry out track inspections and also very rarely when we have a power cut to rescue the train and pull it back to the station. I'm also delighted that Frank Pollock, who ran the world's greatest model railway, is here today. This is now the building that contains on-screen cars. Now, most significantly, on opening day, there was someone with us who has come back to Beaulieu for the first time in 50 years, and that's Orinoco Womble. He came here in 1974 with Wellington, Tomsk, and Madame Chalet. This time, he's come with the head of the Womble hierarchy, Great Uncle Bulgaria. Please give them both a cheer.
Wombles are organised, work as a team. Wombles are tidy and wombles are clean. Underground, overground, wombling free. The wombles of Wimbledon, common are we.
It's quite a reunion for us. Now, as I mentioned earlier, my sister Mary was here with me on that occasion. And in fact, you know, exactly at this point in July 1974, Orinoco was enjoying great success as the lead vocalist in singing the song Remember You're a Womble, which had spent 16 weeks in the charts, peaking at number 3. Hooray! Mary, what recollections do you have of that occasion?
Well, I was a huge Womble fan, being 9.5 years old, and I was so excited that they'd come to Beaulieu, and I was actually going to meet them. And when they arrived, they drove in that beautiful Rolls Royce sitting down below us here, and they drove in and parked here, and then they wombled across a wobbly bridge across what was then a pond, which is now where those cars are. We then went on the monorail, and I got to sit next to Wellington in the coach. And I had this lovely time, and you can see it on film because it was captured. I was rather shy meeting my great hero. And he came towards me, wanted to give me a kiss, and I was coy and shy. I said, oh, no, no, no. But I stroked him, and we became great friends. And it was a huge moment in my childhood to actually be there and meet the Wombles, and to be there at the opening of the monorail 50 years ago. And what a fantastic thing it's been for Beaulieu. And we're delighted to have the Wombles back here again to celebrate the 50 years. It's just great to have them here.
Great. Okay. So could I ask our two Womble friends and Mary to gather together as I symbolically, with Mary, cut the cake. I'm going to just do a little slice now, but it will be cut up properly later, because as you can see, it's a very, very intricate piece of work. A monorail cake made by Amanda Black of Milford-on-Sea. So we'll just cut through there and declare the monorail 50 years old.
My name's Ross, and I popped down here for the Beaulieu 50th anniversary. A very long time ago, 35 years ago, I was asked to produce some little doors on the train. At the time there weren't any doors, and there was a chance that some little person might take a tumble. So the idea was to make the doors kind of match the train. So I came up with a kind of a square thing with lovely flowing round corners. That an engineering company I used to work for, Watson Haigs, did the electromechanical mechanisms in the doors. So when the driver pressed a button, the whole thing would pop open. So here, on this little photo archive, is all the hundreds and hundreds of bits to make 19 doors. So which was quite a lot of work, really. But anyway, autumn 1989. They were all pretty well ready and fitted onto the carriages in Andover at Watson Haigs, all bolted together, and they came down on a big lorry and were craned off onto the monorail track. And not one door worked. Yeah, it's true. The driver pressed a button, nothing opened at all. On their transit down, every single little carriage had moved, and I was down just before Christmas, really adjusting, taking every door apart and adjusting it to get them all to work. But 35 years later, I have to say I'm quite pleased that they talking to the workshop engineers, they all still work. All the 19 doors, you see all the little lock mechanisms, which were electrically operated, and the little solenoids in the little wax paper carriers, the little covers to hide all the electrics and everything. So that's the doors put together, and the little hole was to open the door from the outside, and the big hinges and things. There's the doors fitted to the training hammering out the museum things, and Ivor, the little tender. So the idea was to make some fiberglass skirts for Ivor the tender. And that was built by Watson and Higgs in Andover. And there's Nick Robbins doing the paint job. I think Nick still works at Beaulieu, which is nice. So a big set of the train, and me at 3 o'clock in the morning looking very tired, wondering why this bit hasn't fitted properly, really. So, and there's all the carriages being hoisted up on the lorry of Watson and Higgs. But I did other things at Beaulieu as well. Part of the attractions, model cars and things for them, which was fun, as well as the odd monorail train repair when people had little shunting accidents. But it was a lovely time at Beaulieu.